I'd been sorting mail in the basement of Carter Industries for 3 years. At least that's what everyone thought I did. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I organized envelopes into bins, my hands moving automatically through a routine I could perform in my sleep. Through the thin ceiling, I could hear footsteps and muffled voices from the executive offices above. My family's voices mostly. Dad's booming laugh. My brother Marcus's sharp, commanding tone. My sister Jennifer's precise, clipped instructions to her assistant. They all worked upstairs. In the real offices. With windows and mahogany desks and leather chairs. I worked in the mailroom. Still down here playing with letters? Marcus had said last week, stopping by on his way to somewhere important. He'd been holding a file marked confidential board review, and wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. You know, Dad keeps hoping you'll show some ambition. Take night classes. Try to work your way up. I'd smiled and nodded, stacking packages with careful precision. What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been the one who paid for that suit. And the car he drove. And the mortgage on Dad's house. And Jennifer's daughter's private school tuition. What they didn't know was that every Friday at 4:47 p.m., I left the mailroom, walked 3 blocks to a private office building, and attended a very different kind of meeting. The kind with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The kind where people called me Miss Carter and stood when I entered the room. The kind where I reviewed financial statements showing that I controlled 67% of Carter Industries shares. My grandfather had been meticulous in his planning. When he died 8 years ago, everyone assumed the business had been split evenly among his children and grandchildren. There had been a will reading, inheritance announcements, tearful speeches about legacy and responsibility. What there hadn't been was any mention of the trust he'd established 23 years earlier, when I was 5 years old. The trust that had been quietly accumulating shares, purchasing stock during the company's difficult years when other family members were selling off portions to maintain their lifestyles. The trust that had matured on my 25th birthday, 3 years and 2 months ago, making me the majority shareholder of the entire family empire. Grandpa had left a letter with his attorney. I'd read it so many times I had it memorized. Sarah, by the time you read this, you'll understand why I never told the others. Your father is a good man but a terrible businessman. Your brother has ambition but no patience. Your sister has intelligence but no vision. You have something they don't. You listen, you observe, and you understand that real power doesn't announce itself. It waits. The company needs someone who knows when to be silent and when to speak. I trust you'll know the difference. So I'd waited. And watched. And sorted mail. The mailroom position had been Dad's idea, actually. Everyone should start at the bottom, he'd announced at a family dinner 4 years ago. Build character. Understand the business from the ground up. Marcus had started in sales and been promoted to VP of Operations within 18 months. Jennifer had begun in marketing and was now Chief Strategy Officer. They'd started at the bottom the way rich kids always do, with a clear path to the top and a safety net woven from family connections. I'd actually started in the mailroom. And stayed there. Because from the mailroom I could see everything. Every memo, every contract, every confidential document passed through my hands before reaching its destination. I knew about the failed expansion into the Texas market before the board did. I knew about the client complaints in the Midwest region before Dad did. I knew about Marcus's expensive mistakes and Jennifer's risky proposals before anyone thought to tell me. I knew everything. And they thought I knew nothing. Sarah. Marcus's voice echoed down the stairwell. Sarah, are you down there? I looked up from the package I was labeling. Yeah. Board meeting in 10 minutes. Make sure Dad's mail gets to his office before lunch. He's expecting something from the Singapore office. Got it, I called back. The Singapore office. That would be the contract for the manufacturing partnership. I'd already read it, of course. I'd also already had my attorney review it and identify 3 problematic clauses that would cost the company approximately $2.3 million over 5 years if left unchanged. I'd drafted suggested amendments last week. They sat in a file in my other office, the one my family didn't know about. Waiting. And Sarah. Marcus's voice again, closer now. He was coming down the stairs. Maybe wear something nicer tomorrow? We're having potential investors tour the building. Don't want them thinking we're running some kind of, you know. He gestured vaguely at my jeans and company polo shirt. Some kind of business that employs people in the mailroom? I asked. He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. You know what I mean. Just make an effort. Sure, Marcus. He left. I went back to sorting. At 11:30, I delivered Dad's mail personally. His office was on the top floor. All windows and awards and photographs of himself with various politicians and business leaders. He was on the phone when I entered, so I set the mail on his desk and turned to leave. Sarah, wait, he said, covering the receiver. Quick question. Your mother and I are hosting a dinner next week. Some important clients. Would you mind helping in the kitchen? The caterer could use an extra pair of hands. I'd been helping in the kitchen at family events since I was 16. Serving drinks, clearing plates, staying invisible while the important people talked about important things. Of course, I said. Great. You're a lifesaver. He returned to his call, already forgetting I was there. I closed the door quietly behind me. In the elevator, I checked my phone. 3 messages from my attorney, David Chin. 1 from my financial advisor. 1 from the chairman of our board, Robert Martinez, who was one of 3 people who knew the truth about my ownership stake. David's message was brief. They're moving forward with the merger. Meeting at 2 p.m. today. Your presence required. The merger. Marcus's big project. He'd been working on it for 6 months. A $12 million deal to acquire a smaller manufacturing company that would, in his words, revolutionize our supply chain and establish Carter Industries as a dominant force in the sector. What it would actually do was saddle us with $4.5 million in hidden debt, a facility that needed $2 million in immediate repairs, and a toxic work culture that had driven away 3/4 of the acquired company's skilled workforce. I knew this because I'd had it investigated. Thoroughly. Marcus didn't know this because he'd been too excited about the potential profit margins to do proper due diligence. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor. I stepped out, nodded to the receptionist, and walked toward the exit. Taking lunch? She asked. Doctor's appointment, I said. Back in an hour. 3 blocks away, in the glass and steel tower that housed Chin and Associates, I rode a different elevator to a different floor. The doors opened onto a reception area with modern art and leather furniture. A young associate greeted me by name. Ms. Carter, Mr. Chin is waiting in the conference room. I followed her down a hallway lined with offices. Through open doors I could see attorneys at work, shelves packed with legal texts, computer screens showing contract language and financial projections. This was what power looked like when it didn't need to announce itself. David stood when I entered the conference room. He was 53, sharp-featured, and had been my grandfather's attorney for 20 years before becoming mine. On the table in front of him was a stack of documents 6 inches thick. Sarah, he said. We have a situation. The merger. The merger. Marcus presented it to the board this morning. They're meeting at 2 p.m. to vote on final approval. He slid a folder across the table. But per the company bylaws, any transaction over $10 million requires approval from shareholders controlling more than 50% of company stock. Which is me. Which is you. I sat down and opened the folder. Inside was the merger agreement, along with a detailed analysis my team had prepared. Everything I'd suspected was there, documented in careful detail. The debt. The facility issues. The workforce problems. The projected losses. If this goes through, David said, Carter Industries will be in serious financial trouble within 18 months. Marcus doesn't see that. Marcus sees what he wants to see. The board will follow his recommendation because they trust him. Your father will vote yes because he wants to believe his son is as brilliant as Marcus thinks he is. And Jennifer? Jennifer will abstain. She doesn't like the deal but won't oppose her brother directly. Family politics. I nodded slowly, reading through the analysis. It was worse than I'd thought. If this merger proceeded, it wouldn't just hurt the company, it could destroy it. The board meets in 2 hours, David said. What do you want to do? I looked at the documents spread across the table. 3 years of watching. 3 years of sorting mail and staying silent. 3 years of letting my family treat me like the one who couldn't cut it in the real business world. 3 years of waiting for the right moment. I want to attend the board meeting, I said. David smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. It was the smile of an attorney who'd been waiting a long time to see someone's careful plans come to fruition. I'll make the call, he said. At 1:55 p.m., I walked back into Carter Industries. I was still wearing jeans and a polo shirt. I was still carrying the messenger bag I used for mail deliveries. I did not go to the mailroom. I went to the executive floor. The receptionist looked confused when I stepped off the elevator. "Sarah? Can I help you with something?" "Board meeting," I said. "Conference room A." That's a private meeting. 4 board members and executives only." "I know." I walked past her desk. She picked up the phone, probably calling security, but I was already at the conference room door. Inside, 12 people sat around a long table. My father at the head. Marcus to his right, looking confident and relaxed. Jennifer to his left, reviewing something on her tablet. 8 board members, including Robert Martinez, who met my eyes for a fraction of a second and then looked away. And 3 empty chairs. One for the company's corporate attorney. One for the CFO. And one at the far end of the table directly opposite my father. The majority shareholder's chair. Everyone looked up when I entered. "Sarah," Dad said. "What are you doing here?" "This is a board meeting." "I know. Mailroom workers don't attend board meetings," Marcus said. His voice had that edge to it, the one he used when he was annoyed but trying to sound patient. "We're in the middle of something important." "I know," I said again. I walked around the table to the empty chair at the far end. "Seriously, Sarah." Jennifer now sounding more concerned than annoyed. "Is everything okay? Did you need something?" I sat down. "Sarah." Dad's voice was harder now. "This isn't appropriate. Please leave. I'm where I'm supposed to be." Marcus laughed. It was a sharp, incredulous sound. "You're supposed to be sorting packages. Go back downstairs. We'll talk about this later." "Actually," said a voice from the doorway, "Miss Carter is exactly where she's supposed to be." Everyone turned. David Chin stood in the doorway, briefcase in hand. Behind him was Margaret Rodriguez, Carter Industries CFO, and James Patterson, the corporate attorney. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus demanded. "David Chin, Ms. Carter's attorney." He walked to the table and set his briefcase down. "I apologize for the interruption, but there's a procedural matter that needs to be addressed before this vote proceeds." "Procedural matter?" Dad looked between David and me, confusion replacing his earlier authority. "What's going on?" David opened his briefcase and removed a document. He placed it on the table in front of my father. "This is a copy of a trust agreement established by Mr. Andrew Carter Sr. 23 years ago. It details the transfer of company shares to his granddaughter, Sarah Carter, upon her 25th birthday." The room went very quiet. Marcus grabbed the document. "That's impossible. Grandpa's will was read 8 years ago. Everything was distributed." "The will distributed his remaining assets," David said calmly. "The trust was established years before his death and was not part of his estate. It was a separate legal instrument, managed by an independent trustee until Ms. Carter reached the age specified in the trust agreement." "How much are we talking about?" Jennifer asked. Her voice was steady but her face had gone pale. David looked at me. I nodded. Ms. Carter currently holds 67% of Carter Industries voting shares. If the room had been quiet before, it was dead silent now. "That's..." Dad started. Stopped. Started again. "That's impossible. I would have known. The board would have known." "The trust agreement included a confidentiality clause," David explained. "Ms. Carter had no obligation to disclose her ownership stake unless and until she chose to do so." Marcus's face had gone from pale to red. "This is insane. She works in the mailroom. She doesn't know anything about running this company." "She's been in the mailroom for 3 years," Robert Martinez said quietly. He was the only person in the room who didn't look shocked. "Which means she's been the majority shareholder for 3 years." Everyone turned to look at him. "You knew." Dad's voice cracked slightly. "I'm the chairman of the board," Robert said. "It's my job to know who our shareholders are. Miss Carter contacted me shortly after her grandfather's trust matured. We've been in regular communication since then." "Regular communication." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "You've been lying to us for 3 years?" "I haven't lied about anything," I said. It was the first time I'd spoken since David arrived. "No one ever asked." "No one asked if you secretly owned the company?" No one asked much of anything actually. Mostly people just told me where I belonged. The words hung in the air. Jennifer closed her eyes. Dad's face had gone gray. This is ridiculous, Marcus said, but his voice had lost its edge. Even if this is true, even if you somehow got your hands on that much stock, you don't know anything about this business. You sort mail. I read it too, I said. What? The mail. I read it. Every memo, every contract, every financial report that passes through this building crosses my desk first. I've been reading everything for 3 years. Margaret Rodriguez made a sound that might have been a laugh or a gasp. That's... Marcus looked around the table for support. That's unethical. It's her job, David said. Mail handling includes routing documents to their appropriate recipients. Ms. Carter has been performing her assigned duties with exceptional thoroughness. The merger, Dad said suddenly. This is about the merger. Yes, I said. You want to block it. I want to prevent a catastrophic mistake. Marcus exploded. Catastrophic? This merger will make us the dominant force in our sector. The profit projections alone are based on incomplete information, I interrupted. The company we're acquiring has $4.5 million in hidden debt that isn't reflected in their public statements. Their primary manufacturing facility needs $2 million in immediate repairs to meet current safety codes. And their workforce has a turnover rate of 73% because of a toxic management culture that's resulted in 3 separate lawsuits in the past 18 months. Absolute silence. That's... Marcus's voice was weak now. Where did you get that information? I had it investigated. Properly. When? 4 months ago. When you first proposed the merger. I opened my messenger bag and removed a folder. Inside was the full report, 200 pages of detailed analysis, financial projections, and legal assessments. I slid it across the table to Marcus. If we proceed with this merger, I said, Carter Industries will be facing financial crisis within 18 months. We'll be forced to make massive layoffs, possibly close the acquired facility entirely, and take a loss of approximately $8 million when all is said and done. Marcus stared at the folder like it was a snake. You had no right, he said. I had every right. I'm the majority shareholder. You're a mailroom clerk. I'm both. Dad cleared his throat. His voice sounded old. Sarah, why didn't you say something? If you knew there were problems with the merger, why let it get this far? I've been trying to tell you for months, I said quietly. Every time I tried to bring up concerns, I was told to focus on my own work. To stay in my lane. To leave the important decisions to the people who understood business. You never mentioned being the majority shareholder, Jennifer said. Would you have listened if I had? She didn't answer. Robert Martinez cleared his throat. We need to address the immediate issue. The merger vote. Ms. Carter, as the majority shareholder, you have the authority to approve or reject this transaction. What's your decision? Everyone looked at me. Marcus looked angry and humiliated. Jennifer looked stunned. Dad looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. And I felt calm. The same calm I'd felt for 3 years, sorting mail and watching and waiting. I'm rejecting the merger, I said. Effective immediately. You can't just, Marcus started. Yes, she can, David said. And she is. The vote is blocked. This isn't over, Marcus said. He stood up, knocking his chair backward. I'll fight this. I'll challenge the trust. You'll lose, David said simply. The trust is ironclad. Your grandfather had it reviewed by 3 separate law firms. Every possible challenge was anticipated and addressed. Marcus looked around the table, seeking allies. No one met his eyes. He grabbed his papers and stormed out. The door slammed behind him. The meeting continued for another hour. There were questions about the trust, about my intentions, about what I planned to do now that my ownership was public knowledge. I answered them calmly and specifically. Yes, the trust was legal. Yes, I intended to take an active role in company leadership. Yes, I understood this would require some organizational restructuring. No, I wasn't firing anyone immediately. No, I didn't plan to sell the company. No, I didn't hold any grudges. That last one might have been a small lie. When the meeting finally ended, people filed out slowly. Jennifer paused at the door. Sarah. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I should have listened. When you tried to bring up concerns, I should have listened. Yeah, I said. You should have. She left. Dad was the last one remaining aside from David and me. He sat in his chair at the head of the table, looking at the documents spread in front of him like they were written in a foreign language. Your grandfather did this, he said finally. He chose you. Yes. Why? Because he knew I'd wait for the right moment. And this was it. Humiliating your brother in front of the board. This was stopping the company from making a $12 million mistake that would have destroyed everything Grandpa built. Dad was quiet for a long time. Then, what happens now? Now we restructure. I'm hiring an external auditor to review all current projects and contracts. I'm implementing new approval processes for major expenditures. I'm bringing in a team to assess our actual position in the market and develop a sustainable growth strategy. And Marcus will keep his position if he's willing to work with the new structure. So will Jennifer. So will you. But you're in charge. I own 67% of the company, Dad. I've been in charge for 3 years. I'm just not hiding it anymore. He stood slowly. He looked older than he had that morning. I'm sorry, he said. For treating you like you didn't matter. For assuming you'd failed. I didn't fail. I was exactly where I needed to be. In the mailroom. In the mailroom. He nodded slowly and left. David started packing up his briefcase. Well, that went better than expected. No one threw anything. Marcus might still. Marcus will calm down once he processes the reality of the situation. He's not stupid, just arrogant. He'll realize that working with you is better than working against you. And if he doesn't? David smiled. Then he'll learn an expensive lesson about corporate governance. I gathered my papers, sliding them back into my messenger bag. The same bag I'd been carrying for 3 years, delivering mail and staying invisible. Sarah, David said. What are you going to do? About the mailroom. What do you mean? You can't keep working down there. You're the majority shareholder. The acting CEO effectively. You need an office. A proper position. I thought about the mailroom. The fluorescent lights and the sorting bins and the quiet space where no one bothered me unless they needed something delivered. I thought about the executive offices upstairs. The windows and the mahogany desks and the weight of everyone's expectations. I'll move upstairs eventually, I said. But not yet. There's still a lot to learn from watching how information flows through this building. And people are more honest when they don't think anyone important is listening. David laughed. Your grandfather would be proud. Yeah, I said. I think he would. I didn't go back to the mailroom that day. Instead, I went to the executive floor and found an empty office. One that had been used for storage, filled with old filing cabinets and broken chairs. This one, I told the facilities manager who'd been nervously following me around since the board meeting ended. Clean it out. I'll need a desk, a computer, and a phone line by tomorrow. But Ms. Carter, there are nicer offices available. The corner office on the top floor. This one is fine. It's close to the mailroom. He looked confused but nodded. By the time I left the building that evening, word had spread. I could feel the eyes following me as I walked through the lobby. Whispers trailing in my wake. The mailroom girl owns the company. The mailroom girl is the boss. The mailroom girl has been the boss for 3 years. My phone started ringing before I made it to my car. Marcus called twice. I didn't answer. Jennifer texted, "Can we talk?" I responded, "Tomorrow." At home, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my balcony looking out at the city lights. 3 years of sorting mail. 3 years of being dismissed and overlooked and treated like I didn't matter. 3 years of knowing exactly what I was and what I could do. 3 years of waiting. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Robert Martinez. Emergency board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. We need to formally vote on your position as CEO and establish the new organizational structure. Also, Marcus is demanding an explanation. Fair warning, tomorrow will be difficult. I typed back, "I'll be there." Then I added, "Should I wear something nicer? Don't want people thinking we're running some kind of business that promotes from the mailroom." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Wear whatever you want, Ms. Carter. You own the place." I smiled and set my phone down. Tomorrow would be difficult. There would be more confrontations, more explanations, More people who couldn't understand how the mailroom girl had ended up in charge. But tonight I sat on my balcony and drank my wine and thought about my grandfather's letter. Real power doesn't announce itself. It waits. I'd waited 3 years. And now finally it was time to speak. The next morning I arrived at Carter Industries at 8:45 a.m. I was wearing jeans and a polo shirt. Some things weren't worth changing. The conference room was already full when I entered. All 12 board members. Marcus looking furious. Jennifer looking uncertain. Dad looking defeated. And at the head of the table the CEO's chair. Waiting for me. I walked around the table and sat down. "Good morning," I said. "Let's talk about the future of this company." Marcus opened his mouth to object. "Starting," I continued, looking directly at him, "with why the mailroom has better information than the executive offices. And what we're going to do to fix that." Robert Martinez smiled. The meeting began. And for the first time in 3 years, everyone in the room was finally actually listening.